Of course, we must talk about one of the most important figures that impacted Islam in Nigeria, none other than a man that unfortunately many Nigerians and as well as many Muslims in the world are neglectful of, ignorant of. And that is none other than Uthman Dan Fodio, rahimahullah ta'ala. The one who was born in 1754. He was born in the north, of course. His grandfather migrated here from Senegal. Many say for business, many say for others. But he was born into a family of knowledge. His father was his first teacher and his mother was his first teacher. He was taught the Quran, he was taught the sciences of Islam, and he was taught the Arabic language. Already, we learn a lesson. We as a Muslim society must center knowledge in our lives, must center knowledge in the family, must center the Arabic language. The Arabic language is not the language of the Arabs. Might sound weird to you. How is the Arabic language not the language of the Arabs? The Arabic language is the language of Islam. And every Muslim must make it a point to try to learn this language and come closer to Allah by learning it. And this, you see in the strength of Islamic history, when Muslims learned the Arabic language and it became central, you see that Allah Azza wa Jalla raised that society because it was based on knowledge. This great scholar, before even he was anything, Allah Azza wa Jal blessed that family to centralize knowledge. And they were a family of knowledge. He learned the Arabic language, he memorized the Quran, and then he studied under a scholar by the name of Sheikh Jibril ibn Umar. This scholar impacted him. He impacted him in a profound way. He made him feel empowered. He made him also address the ills of society. He didn't say, think about the stories of the past. He didn't just say, feel good Islam. Feel good about your Islam and then don't do anything. But rather, let us see what we can change in society. This scholar was a scholar of change and impact. He looked at what was happening at that time in Hausa land, where there was much oppression. People were taking advantage of others. And also people's belief started to mix with paganism, with worshipping idols and worshipping different things with Islam. And unfortunately, culture as well, they started to impact and suppress true Islamic belief. He became a scholar of hadith as well. He loved the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He was known to be very intimate with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's hadith. Because I want to ask you a question. When Shuraim told us the name of Rasulullah ﷺ, everyone, your heart moves when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is mentioned. When you saw those pictures of Medina, your heart moves because your heart is attached to that blessed place. It's the love of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. But my genuine question is, how can we say we love Rasulullah ﷺ and we don't know intimately what he said? How many of us have read the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi? How many of us have read Riyadh al-Salihin cover to cover? How many of us have read Adab al-Mufrad? And I'm not even talking about then Bukhari and Muslim and At-Tirmidhi and the other works of hadith. I remember I was visiting a city in America, in Baltimore, and there was a young man who was 15 years old. They said he's read all 6 books of hadith. I asked him, why did you do so? Because I love the Prophet. I want to know what he said. Our society must now move past my respect to YouTube Islam and this general talks. We must learn Islam intimately. We must learn what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said so we can derive guidance. You as an individual, try to read Riyadh al-Salihin completely. You with your family, have a gathering of hadith. Start that. Start reading Riyadh al-Salihin. Start reading Adab al-Mufrad by Imam al-Bukhari. These are the works of when we know what the Prophet ﷺ has said, then we can truly implement and impact our lives. This young man was raised with that. He was a scholar of hadith. Thereafter, he started to speak about Islam publicly. And again, with the motivation of a teacher who empowered him. He spoke to the society and people and he started to impact them. The Sultan of Gobir, Bawa, was the one who noticed this. And he brought him to his court. He made him an offer basically saying, come under me, and he refused. Later on, he noticed that maybe this would impact him. And there was an assassination attempt against him to stop him from his teaching. Why? Because his teaching corrected the ills of society. When he became so well known. People followed him because of learning true Islam. And one important thing, in his gatherings, men and women were allowed to be in the same place. Men and women. Scholars at that time, they criticized Shaykh Uthman. They criticized him. They said, how can you allow women to go out of their homes? And he said, how is it okay for you to seek knowledge, but you don't allow your women to seek knowledge as well, which Allah allowed them to? And that mentality is what made his gatherings open like this, men and women, from his gatherings. And that is why that access to education for both men and women made his message spread like wildfire. It impacted so many people in a very short amount of time. 20 years of da'wah, day in and day out. And he would build them. He wouldn't just give general lectures. He would say, okay, you want to learn? We have now madrasa, an education system. He would take his advanced students and he would teach them personally, spend time with them, and essentially build a society of teachers. He would not allow anyone to lead or teach without being qualified. And then he was close to being 40 years old. The ruler of Gobir invited him again. And he said to him, I want to give you money. I want to give you money and I want to pay you. What does that mean? Essentially, you're buying him a little bit, to be under him. And he said, we are not in need of your wealth. We have 5 demands, 5 requests. Number 1, you will allow us to teach without any impediment. Number 2, you will free those who have been imprisoned from my students for no reason. And so on. He gave 5 requests, and the Sultan of Gobir understood that he's now a very powerful man, and if he doesn't do his demands, people will be upset with him, so he gave it to him. This teaches us another thing, my brothers and sisters. Our scholars need to be independent. Our scholarship must not follow one way or another, but they must rectify the society by independent speech, not following anyone except Allah and His Messenger. When he was 40 years old, in 1794, he moved to the city known as Degal, and he started to teach people in that city, and it became a markaz, a central of learning. People from all over Hausaland and surrounding provinces and lands, they came to Uthman Dan Fodio to teach. This man wrote 300 volumes with his brother in Arabic language, tafsir of the Quran, and many of them, alhamdulillah, that are available to us today. In 1790, something changed. The ruler of Gobir died, and his son, known as Nafata, he took power. He became corrupt, and he wanted the end of Shaykh Usman's rule. So he said to them, you will no longer be allowed to publicly speak about Islam, and whoever accepted Islam must return back to their religion of the past. And he committed oppression against them. In fact, this became almost militant, and all of the followers and students of Uthman Dan Fodio had to run for their lives. And in 1803, this man died, and his son named Yunfa tried to kill Uthman Dan Fodio. The ruler of Gobir tried to end the life of this great scholar. And at that point in time, 20 years of teaching and sending teachers all over Africa, many of them were now forced to go into hiding because of oppression. And unfortunately, this ruler killed a number of the greatest teachers of Uthman Dan Fodio. They were oppressed and murdered by Yunfa's soldiers. And in a particular place in Gimbana, women were taken even as slaves, and they were sold, and this all happened in the month of Ramadan. Then they challenged Allah, and they said, where is the punishment your Lord promises if you claim to be true? It's a very difficult time, massive oppression. So what happened? Uthman Dan Fodio made hijrah. He made hijrah from Degal to Gudu in 1804. Many people in mass started to travel from this city to the other. This scared the Sultan, and he started to have communication with Uthman Dan Fodio that we will stop the oppression. Just don't tell people to stop moving to you, because this will essentially be a threat to the Sultan. And then they realized that this communication failed, and Uthman Dan Fodio had no other result except to military bring to justice against oppression. He applied his brother Abdullahi as a commander. And there was a battle that happened in Gurdum where they were outnumbered by a very large force, but Allah gave them victory. They said that this battle in Gurdum was like Badr for us.